It was a moonless night, and the fog hung thick in the air as Mark set out on his long drive home from the neighboring town. The winding country road stretched ahead, its edges swallowed by the swirling mist. He had driven this route countless times, but tonight, something felt different. Mark's car hummed along the deserted road, the only illumination coming from his headlights. The radio played softly in the background, a feeble attempt to combat the oppressive silence. But it was the silence itself that began to gnaw at Mark's nerves. As he navigated the twisting road, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see another vehicle tailing him, but the road behind him was empty. He tried to dismiss his unease as a product of fatigue, but the sense of being observed only intensified. Every rustling leaf, every whisper of the wind seemed to echo in his ears, and the shadows cast by the trees appeared to dance menacingly. In the distance, Mark spotted a figure standing on the side of the road. It was a woman, her long hair blowing in the wind. She wore a white dress that seemed to glow eerily in the darkness. Mark slowed down, his curiosity piqued. As he approached, the woman turned to face him. Her face was pale, her expression blank, and her eyes were empty voids. Mark's heart began to race as he realized there was something undeniably unnatural about her. Without warning, the woman stepped into the path of his car. Mark slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. He felt a sickening thud as the car collided with her, and the world seemed to spin. He brought the car to a halt, his heart pounding in his chest. With trembling hands, Mark got out of the car, his flashlight revealing the horrifying truth. There, lying on the road, was nothing. No woman, no body, just empty darkness. Panic surged through him, and he fumbled for his phone to call the police, but as he dialed, the eerie silence descended once more, and his phone displayed no signal. Desperation took hold as Mark returned to his car and tried to start the engine, but it remained stubbornly silent. He attempted to call for help once more, but his phone refused to cooperate. He was alone, stranded in the middle of nowhere, with no sign of the mysterious woman and no means of communication. As Mark sat in his car, shrouded in darkness and silence, a sense of dread settled over him. He was trapped, surrounded by an oppressive stillness that seemed to press in from all sides. The only sound was the soft whisper of the wind. Hours passed, but there was no sign of help, no sign of life. Mark's mind began to play tricks on him. He saw shadowy figures moving in the corners of his vision, heard faint whispers in the darkness. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched by something unseen. In a desperate bid for escape, Mark decided to abandon his car and make the journey on foot. He had no idea how far he was from civilization, but he couldn't bear to stay trapped in the suffocating silence any longer. He set out on the dark road, his flashlight casting a feeble beam ahead. The fog had thickened, reducing visibility to mere feet. Mark's footsteps echoed eerily in the quiet, and his own breathing sounded like a scream in his ears. As he walked, Mark's surroundings seemed to warp and shift. The trees appeared to stretch and contort. The road extended endlessly into the distance, and the whispers grew louder, taunting him with unintelligible words. Suddenly, the woman in the white dress appeared before him, her face still devoid of expression. Mark froze in his tracks, his heart pounding. He couldn't comprehend how she had returned, but he knew he had to confront her. The woman extended her hand, her fingers reaching out to touch him. Mark recoiled, his fear reaching its peak, but as her hand made contact with his, he felt an icy chill coursing through him, draining his strength and will. In that moment, Mark realized the truth. The woman was not a woman at all, but a malevolent entity, a specter of the night. She was the embodiment of the eerie silence that had surrounded him, the oppressive stillness that had driven him to the brink of madness. As Mark's vision blurred, he heard her voice, a haunting melody that echoed in his mind. "You are mine," she whispered, her words like a death knell. And then, in the inky darkness, Mark disappeared, leaving behind only the chilling memory of his ill-fated midnight drive. The road remained shrouded in silence, the fog concealing its secrets, as if it had swallowed Mark whole, and the woman in the white dress stood alone, her empty eyes staring into the abyss, waiting for the next traveler to wander into her haunting domain.